Hey, good morning, folks, and we'll get started. Welcome to Train and Trade. You got a market, it's really on its back legs right now. I believe that S&P 6288, which is below our pivot of 6295. The market's just floating right here. And it looks like it's the way I read what I'm looking at is that the market itself is maybe anticipating some news. Maybe I don't know. That's the way I read it. A lot of the tech stocks are using this time to correct all the way across the board. If you just look at it, Amazon looks the strongest, holding 223.70. But Nvidia is holding in there 150, almost 157.75. But let's just get started, if we will. And welcome to the Train and Trade. And Jonathan, are you here? Yeah, okay. All right, risk involved in trading, past performance is not indicative of future results. Just a little passing word here. The sunrise signal did not lead us wrong or right this morning, kept us out of the market, and that was a good job. Way to go, sunrise. Risk disclaimer, past performance is, like I said, not indicative of future results. In my opinion, the ultimate outcome, and write this date down, July 21st. I told you it'd be a little rocky until we got there. Let's just see if the market itself maybe catches a bid, or they get below the 62.75 area. Sort of 62.75 is that rock bottom support that we had before the big rally. Remember that number, 62.75. Currently about 62.88. Now let's review MTI by DTI. This is a great tool for markets like this. And right now you got a sell signal on the E-mini, and that you can just throw a lot of stocks in there, and they're probably on the short term do that. What it's good for is for sorting out these trends, and right now, just looking at the mini, it's negative, and just looking at the way it's floating down, so to speak. Okay, great for markets like this. Long-term charts are obviously bullish, and we're up about 5% for the year. Okay. Now, what we did with the daily scanner, we have the daily scanner, and then I had Tom Delager at Sawgrass build us a midday scanner. And Jonathan, why don't you go through this and sort of give them an overview of what it does for you when you compare it to the daily one?
Yeah, the kind of the way that I have this organized is you have the daily charts, which is based on long term, of course. And as Tom said, we've been bullish. We're still bullish on the daily. And then, in fact, it might be hard to see, but there's a little gray line. This is the XSP. There's a little gray line right here. And that is the month open. You can see we're still, a good bit above the month open. Here's your MTI lines. We're above those. This is the XSP on the daily chart. What the daily scanner does, let me get rid of that red ink real quick. And I've got the daily side of our scanner boxed off here. It's going to tell you the stocks that are above their month open and above their MTI lines, or vice versa.
And can everybody see that? That's an important point when you're looking at this. Giving us a couple examples.
Well, let's see here. Apple is above its longer term. Just look for the green. ADI, AMAT, Amazon is above its on the long term. And this was taken about an hour ago, which will matter when we get to the
All right,
end.
you got two great examples. Look at Apple 206, and then look at the short term. What was the short term saying, Jonathan, on Apple?
Well, I was just about to get to that. This snapshot was taken an hour ago. So why don't I go take another snapshot right now and we'll compare the daily versus intraday. So let's get into the intraday chart. There's a fresh intraday chart on the XSP. Excuse me, hang on, let me change the time frame. Because that is not the time frame we want. Bear with me a second here. That's a very short time frame, as short as you can get. That's not what we want. But in a moment, I'll post a 30-minute and you'll see what we have. So I can grab a snapshot of it. There's the 30-minute. So you can see on the intraday, the short-term chart, we've fallen below the MTI lines, which is a bearish indicator. Any questions on that?
That's on the XSP, right?
That's on XSP. That's right.
Can you do an Apple?
Yeah, we will. We'll just go live here in a moment. But so we're on the same page in terms of the recording and what will eventually people will refer back to on the slides. I want to take the time to get that updated because, like I said, the snapshots I took were from about an hour ago. So let's update those. Okay, we can use this to discuss right now. And you want an example on Apple. Apple's at the very top. All right. Can everybody see this?
Yeah,
Font's
I can
not
see
very
it.
large. Okay. So you can see Apple's long in the daily, but it's turned down on the intraday scan. Does everybody see that? These two columns right here, and the very top row is Apple as our first example here. Tom, what do you make of that?
Yep, that's good. See, that's the point I'm trying to make. If you look at it, you see the weakness in Apple on a short-term basis, but it's still bullish above 206, the way I'll read that. Okay.
Here's Amazon down here.
Now look at the difference. This is pretty interesting to me. See that 223.03? How Amazon is fighting to stay up in a down market? That's divergence. And that was pointed out during the sunrise signal. It was diverging, but it hadn't diverged enough. But that's pretty interesting to see those two in comparison. You remember last week, Apple had a big week, and now Amazon looks like it's setting up for a big week. Okay. All right. Let's also look at, if we will, why don't you look at the QQQ? This is interesting too, if you do the QQQ.
All right, let's see here. Let me go to see what this watch list has. Yeah, this one has it. Gonna go to a live setup here. And we got I got too many windows going. QQQ right here says bullish long term above 549.73, bearish short term below 554.09.
And so you're at 552 and a half. So it gave you the number that this thing turned south on the QQQ. And the SPY is also bearish, right, on the short term, but bullish
Yes,
on
it
the
is.
long term.
Yep, that's right.
This is the power of having both of them together. For example, if I'm looking at my portfolio and say I'm long Amazon, I'd be okay even though we're correcting. But if I'm long Apple, I might tighten up my stop on Apple, or either get out of Apple to re-enter later. That would be how I would use this looking at a portfolio of stocks. Just pretty cool that we can do that. Okay. And let's see. Let's see if anything else gets my eye.
We have a request in the chat to look at Tesla.
Yeah, why don't we?
Bottom row there, you see it?
Okay, first, is it bullish on the day or the long term, or bearish?
It fell bearish today. That's why it's bright red and says short. Or SHT, which stands for short.
Yeah, and then it's bearish today for the first time. And then over there on the short term, it's telling you it did that about 309, turn south.
On the short term, it turns south to 309 halves. That's right.
This is so valuable to have these numbers readily at your fingertips. And having both side by side. This is the way I have mine set up on my computer over here too, where I have it where I can look at it and say, oh, okay. So real quick, I can look at another thing neat about this. Let me just show you something neat about it, Jonathan. Why don't you put a option in there on the put side of the QQQ? Let me give you the one to put in there, okay? Showing the power of this. Put the 632 that expires on the 14th.
Put 632
and watch them.
Okay, what we're going to do is show everybody how to do that. The 14th, you said, right? 632. Or not. Hang on, I might have the wrong ticker. Did you say the QQ?
It's on SPY. I said QQQ, but SPY is what I'm talking about. Okay, 632.
Okay. 632. This one.
Yeah.
Priced at $10. I'm going to right click on that put. I'm going to hit copy. Copy the SPY July 14th, 632 put. So right click on the price from the drop down, hit copy. Come over here to your watch list and just Control V to paste it in, and then press enter. See what it says. It's going to have to try to chart that.
It's up at the top, isn't it?
Yeah, it's up at the top. Yeah. So anyways, I don't know if it's gonna.
It'll fill in later, but showing a chart on that, where you can show in a chart on that.
There's your chart on it. Long-term and intraday there.
You got 532. You get the wrong symbol. You got to change the chart.
This is the. I'm not sure how that happened. Excuse me. Not a lot of data this morning. There's not a lot of volume out there today. I wouldn't think so. It's a little bit confusing due to that, or at least not on this option. There's not a ton of volume out there, but you can chart and you can plot on your scanner the option data. You just got to go to the option chain, right click, copy symbol, post it into a chart or your tables. It's Tasty Trades, or Thinkorswim's great about that.
Yeah, John, we'll give you the link of the day's session. If you need further help, contact Roe at DTI Trader. The link for the sunrise session, you should get it. And then, like, if you got any other questions after watching this morning's master class, why don't you send an email to Roe@DTI Trader. He'll give you some specific instructions. Does that help you, John? All right, and somebody requests you put Palantir in there. I'm always game for that. Palantir.
Throw it into these charts first. There's Palantir. It's got some work to do to get back on the daily.
Yeah, Palantir short term is sort of diverging from the general trend, isn't it? Okay, so let me ask you a question. I want you to look at this one on MTI, Palantir, where the daily is still below, but the short term is positive. That's one of your choices with your money. Put Amazon in there.
Amazon.
They're both bullish here. Which one would you rather bet on? You tell me. Exactly. That's the beauty of MTI, because you get an instant analysis of where your money ought to be going. I think that's great, Jonathan, what you just showed them. Okay. And I think they got a picture. They registered what I just said, right? And now they got a picture of that. That's great.
All right, back to the slide deck. That time I wanted to just ask you so you can answer for everybody. I know you use it in multiple different forms. So what's your favorite way to use MTI by DTI?
Well, what I generally do is keep E-mini up there and watch the E-mini, because my rule is 75% of all stocks are going to move with the E-mini. And if E-mini is in a sell mode, I'm really not thinking about buying. And so I don't usually go further than that if E-mini's in a sell mode, and it's in a sell mode on the short term right now. Okay. Poly Amazon was better because it was bullish both on the long term and the short term. When you got both of them bullish, that's a better trade.
Yeah, we can show that again here. Excuse me. Well, look across that row for Amazon and you'll see the daily scanner is green and the intraday scanner is green above 223.03. Versus Apple, the daily is green, the intraday is red. Versus Tesla, where you have both red down at the bottom.
Yeah, and the nice thing, and what people saw this morning in our sunrise, we know that if Amazon goes above 224.55, it is an outright buy. We have a good number there off sunrise this morning. Okay, so that's the beautiful thing about having these tools, we're having to do this stuff. Fred asked, how's Lulu? Take a look at Lulu.
Lulu, it's going to resort alphabetically. So Lulu right here looks like mixed to me. Short intraday below 245.5. It's in between on the long. It's closer to the long than the long term, but it's in between the MTI lines.
Now, what color would that be on, here's something, Lulu? It's yellow right now, right? It says to go 13 cents. Is that right?
Right. And if it can get up another 20 cents or so, it'll be above the month open and above the two MTI lines on the long-term set.
Okay.
Of course, you really, let's see, the mark right now is 238.32. So it's going to say long. It's pulled back essentially to the high of the long term, you know, numbers. But just because it gets, if it gets to 238.5, it might say long on the daily. But you got this 245.5 number staring at you on the short term. It really needs to get above that.
Somebody's asking about CoreWeave. You can look at CoreWeave.
Before we got short term as a buy and CoreWeave. Let me look at the chart because CoreWeave has such a limited amount of data. It just started trading. Let's see if it even forms. Yeah, we're not even getting the I'll show you. We're not quite have enough historical data to form our MTI lines. So take that with what it is, but that's CoreWeave on the charts.
And throw the E-mini in there, and I'll show people why. I just look at it. That's about one decision stop. Okay. If I'm thinking about buying the market or selling the market, the first market I look at is the E-mini. Everybody see that red arrow there where it broke down? Everybody see that? And that's the E-mini. So it would have to get right, and the number it had to get right would be about above 6303, which is about 15 points from here. So I'm not buying anything right now when it's like that. Saves you a fortune knowing this stuff, okay? Carol's asking for TQQ. Basically saying you don't want to be long TQQ, especially with the mini where it is and now below 83.90, right?
Yeah,
Go to SQQ in there.
SQQQ. Let's see, that didn't take. There it is.
Interpret that for people.
Well, as you would expect, it's giving you the opposite of what TQQ is saying. So for SQQQ, it's short on the daily, but intraday today it says long. So you really have a mixed viewpoint, though.
Remember, long on the SQQQ tells you the market's going down.
Now we're about to review the July tickers from the first 3 days process. I think it's a good time
Take a break.
to go that or take a break. Yeah, take a break, come back to that. That'd be great. What do you say, 10 minutes?
Yep. Way to go, Dave. Good job. Making money off the 10 tickers. Way to go. You want to take a 10 or 15 minute? Let's take a 15 minute. We've been going pretty strong all day.
Yeah, we sure have. Okay, 15 minutes works for me.
Walk around and we'll come back and review the tickers it's going to make us in July. Yeah, I tell you, one of the lessons, I guess, of trading a lot of years is you shouldn't really trade until you got the odds in your favor. And this morning is a prime example of that. You got a market that is long term, what I would call bullish this year, and yet you're getting a correction from the high of 63.33. And that's the beautiful thing about our process here is that we're very patient. And I posted this morning in the TNT room. I said, patience will pay. It always pays by being smart. Rather than jumping into a trade that you might think you see, it's better to just be patient and wait until you get confirmation. Right now, we have a correction. We're down here. Throw that on a daily chart, if you will, Jonathan, if you don't mind. Put that on a daily chart. Does everybody see that? We're inside that big breakout day. And I think that low on that big breakout day was about 62.75, if I remember correctly. Is that about right? 75, 74, something like that?
62.70. You're pretty much right on.
Yeah, right there. So the reason that people get chopped up in the market, everybody wants to trade. I want to trade. But you have to overcome that with, say, are the numbers justifying trading? Okay. Just like Sunrise this morning was a stand aside. That's a win for me. That's a win. I didn't lose money thinking I saw something I didn't see. But it did tell me I walked away with my eye on Amazon. I hardly ever watch Amazon anymore. Amazon could go and play, and I'm going to keep my eye on it, for tomorrow. That's an example. Is this point being made? You see why we're so good and accurate with our records? We're very patient. We wait for the setups. But you do that. And, typically Mondays are chew 'em up days. Last week the market was stronger than garlic. You come in wanting to buy. If you'd have bought this morning on the QQQ, you'd lose money. If you bought on just about anything out there, you would have lost money today because today is sort of a corrective day. Anyway, just want to make that point because sometimes it's sort of hard to see that. So what we do with Train and Trade, we're showing you the finer points of the great tools we have, okay? And that's good. So Jonathan, if you will, you got some slides or how are we going to do this session?
Yeah, we've got slides for this part. Let's go to it. First 3 days stocks. I updated.
All right, won't you take it from here and explain to them what we're trying to do right now?
Yeah, these were updated at 11:02. And I'll give you the spreadsheet. We'll just do that. I threw it in the chat as well. Let's just look at it live and let's see, this was up at 11:02. Let's update it now. We're about 45 minutes down the road. Let's update it now.
Okay, so he's in the process of updating our sheet.
Won't take but a second.
But this is how we do it right here. What he is doing, this is the background of where our trades come from and how we have the month develop.
So what we have is we have the ticker, column A. We've got the monthly opens for those tickers, column B. We've got the first 3 trade days of July now, the highest high. That was 63.33 on the S&P. The lowest low from the first 3 trade days of the month, that was 62.27 current price. now last updated at call it 11:46 a.m. Eastern time. The above FTD high column, and I'll go ahead and put a below FTD low column. I'll fix that here in a little bit, but what it's saying is if I've got it set up to where if the current price is above the FTD high, it'll say long, like it does down here on coin and circled. So coin, you can see the current price that we just pulled was 358.71. The FTD algo high was 357.87. Current price is above that, so it says long. Circle's the same way. 194 was the FTD high. We pulled a price just now of 198.87, so it's long. The rest of these are not above their FTD high.
Put Amazon in there if you will. I want to make sure Amazon's in there because I noticed it wasn't in the original 25.
That's not, so yeah, let's add that. Amazon. Put it there, right? Above Apple, yeah, sure did. Amazon, it opened the month at 219.5. It let's do this. It has FTD high of 224.01 and an FTD low of 217.93.
So the first thing you say is it closer to the high or closer to the low?
Current price 223.91.
Setting up very nicely.
Okay, so let me see if I can do this real quick. If the current price is below the FTD low, we want it to say short. Got a few that popped up. And then there we go. All right. Well, we got more shorts on the board than longs right now. There's Tesla. We looked at that at the sunrise session this morning.
And we looked at it also on MTI. Look at that.
And MTI, that's right.
Palantir, go back to Palantir. Palantir is showing a long. Okay. This is so helpful for me finding option plays and finding anything else. So was that gold that was short? Yeah, gold short.
Yeah. Bonds, TLT, AMD is showing up short this morning.
Yeah, AMD short.
It's always interesting starting a new month.
Yeah, does everybody see the value of this sheet here? It's early in the month. We're identifying what we think will be trends for July, and we do it through this. Let's just keep going down through the list, see if anything else is. Okay, gold, okay. Palantir, Tesla's short. You got NVIDIA on there? Yeah, where's NVIDIA? Needs to get above 160, okay?
So he got NVIDIA closer to its FTD high than its FTD low, but you got AMD below its FTD low.
Now, how do they get this sheet? We give this to our T-Buzz All-Stars is who we give it to?
I just posted it in the chat.
Yeah, post in the chat. Okay. So you've got the sheet in the chat, and we'll add, maybe subtract some of these tickers throughout the month, but this gives us a start and an advantage over anything we trade. We're trading with the trend if we trade with it.
John's got a good question. He says the columns B, C, and D stay the same the rest of the month. That's correct. The month open won't change now, and the first 3 days of the month numbers won't change either for the rest of July.
This is so valuable, folks, because if these stocks, let me just give you an example. Just take one of these long, Coinbase. It's long. So Coinbase, the odds of Coinbase being higher at the end of the month is about 80%, okay? There's a 20% chance it won't, but there is, but so what you would do, if you were long Coinbase, you would know it should, if it's going to stay long, it's got to stay above really the month open, which is 340, right, Jonathan? So you can see Coinbase is looking really hot this month. And Coinbase, it's, what market is Coinbase associated with? That's the question you got to ask yourself. The crypto market, right? Right. Robin, they're not breaking out. They're in between. As the month gets, as the trend of the month gets firmer, either up or down, these things will start filling in.
Yeah, what will happen is every day I update this. I'll post the day and the time that I update it at the very top. As John was saying, that these 3 columns will stay the same. They won't change now. But when I update it, the current price will change. And based on the current price relative to the FTD high, you might see long pop up on one of the FTD high boxes. Or based on the current price relative to the FTD low, you might see short pop up on one of the FTD low boxes.
The reason I classify the market as a corrective market, if you look at D-mini, it opened at 62.45, its low is 62.27, and current price is 62.81. All we're doing is just pulling back a little bit on this uptrend. And that's what the short-term MTIs tell me. It helps me avoid all that pullback, all that give back. I think this sheet here is one of the things that we put together for our students that we update. You know, I use it exactly what I use it.
Dinosaur Skip, I will usually update this when Tom goes live. And as you know, Tom's live just about every day, if not multiple times a day.
In fact, we're coming back today at 3:30 to close out today because I want to see what's long and short for the week. Look at Berkshire. Berkshire has been sideways for going on 3 months. Look at that. It's closer to the downside than it is upside right now. You would think that it's, you know, it's up for the year, but it's still giving back a little bit every month. Looking at Berkshire. All right, Jonathan, is there any questions about the 25 tickers? And I say 25, sometimes we have a little bit more, sometimes a little less, but somewhere around that number we're operating on. Our strategy is very simple. We start out on Sunday night. We identify 10 tickers that look like there might be possibilities this week. Okay. And as the day goes further, we look at things. Now look at this here. Here's what we identified this week. Oracle, NVIDIA, OWN Computer, NNE.
Those
CoreWeave was one of the ones we identified. Look at that, CoreWeave.
And Tom, those current prices are from about 30 minutes ago or so.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just trying to show in the process. That's what I'm really trying to get across. How deliberate we are before we put money at risk.
Nothing's happened yet on the 10 tickers. You'll notice that the trigger numbers are, for most of them, are a little bit further away from the current price than Tom usually sets them. Now, Tom and I haven't spoken about this, but my guess, Tom, is that we're starting at a new month. There's questions in the air as far as which direction this market wants to go. So you don't want to trick yourself into
I'm zeroing in, and with what happened last week, I didn't want to just jump in because it was positive or negative. I wanted to make sure we got a good trend to trade. And that's why you see bigger numbers here that I got to see, get long or short. And you got a lot of things happening this week that are disruptive. Y'all remember me using the word rocky? It's going to be rocky after the big bill passes. Y'all remember me using that word? And I gave you a date that I thought the rockiness would go away. That's part of my plan. I'd rather hold on to my money than give it away without the odds in my favor. That's one of I think you'd say, what's the top 5 things that makes us so successful? It's that discipline to do exactly what I just said. Answer Robin for me, Jonathan.
See what Robin's question was. Not sure I can answer this, Tom. Robin says 6281 is higher than 6245. That's correct. Is that just not far enough above it? I'm not sure what you're referencing, Robin.
Well, she's referencing the fact that it's higher than where it opened the month. And why wouldn't we just buy it? Well, it's a better buy as far as I'm concerned if the S&P is above today's opening, which was 6307. And it's below my pivot number, which is 6295. So it's just not right. It's not right. It's like you buy a green banana, you wait for it to turn yellow. It's just not yellow yet. I don't think we got Microsoft on the list. If you go back and look at the 25 tickers, yeah, there it is in between. Let's go to the compass chart and look at the Seven Sisters next, Jonathan.
Okay. Let's go over here.
Now, when I look at this chart, my eyes focus on a couple things. You ought to write these down. They focus on the blue bars and the white bars. That's number one. Then they focus on the frame. I'm showing the frame, Jonathan, where they can see what I'm talking about there on the frame and the numbers.
Frame is that magenta pinkish lines right here, top and bottom.
And then I focus on the most current reference bar. And what's the most current reference bar? It's Genesis, 1130 bar. Now, there's some insights about Genesis that you need to know. Typically, the market will either make a low or high during Genesis. It's trying to make a low. And what I say by that is we have 62.81 as the low. We're currently 62.89. If you see this market get above what I'd say the midpoint of that range from 62.81 to 63.07, then that low, okay, that low will probably hold, and that's a good number to hold at as we try to go higher this afternoon. That's the beauty of these tools, and that's on the E-mini. Everybody see what I'm looking at? You start to see that insight come into play here on Genesis, and not there yet, but at least the start of it, okay? All right, that's on the E-mini. Let's look at the NASDAQ futures. Now, the NASDAQ has already broken above Genesis and is about the midpoint, right? The QQQ. In fact, the QQQ is starting to get a little positive there, okay? And if it takes out 229.75, followed by a second pass through that high it goes above, then you got a reversal. That's on that. Now we'll come back to the QQQ and look at it, but I want to get through the Seven Sisters. Look at the Dow. Now the Dow's probably in worse shape than the E-mini. It's down near the lower end of the range. Look at crude oil. If you go back and look, crude oil's up from 65.40 all the way to 67.90. We'll see if it can break 67. Yeah, it looks like 40 to turn back down. That's crude oil. Gold. And gold's come off its lows. It's up at the top of its frame. So gold is setting up to go higher. Silver. The silver's outperforming gold. It's looking pretty good. Silver. Bonds. Wow, bonds have just taken it in the ear. I guess Powell has put his foot down. He's not going to help. what that's saying. Okay. Now let's go, Jonathan, and look at the QQQ. Okay. The QQQ, positive over Genesis, low in place, 552.04. And where you got to get higher, Jonathan? It looks like what is that, 53.34?
I got 5. It gets about 554.55. We'll be looking pretty good.
54.55, right. Okay. And then look at the SPY. Okay. The SPY, again, is not as strong as the NASDAQ, but the NASDAQ has a bid. Let's look at Amazon. Amazon setting up. Coinbase. Sort of consolidating there at Coinbase. Let's get above 364 on Coinbase. Might as well put Tesla in there. It was going the other way, right? See what it's doing. Now, Tesla made a low at 288, trying to bottom out. Okay. That's what Tesla's trying to do. Okay, Jonathan, show them how to add the RB frame to every chart to have on the roadmap.
You're going to go to the menu bar, click on Setup, which is about halfway through the menu bar of the roadmap. You'll click on Charts from that drop down. You're going to stay on the General tab, which is what it opens up to. And the very bottom section of checkable boxes, the middle one is Auto Add RB Frame. If you make that change right now with your roadmap open, you will have the choice of closing your chart and opening it back up. That goes for all of your open charts. Or you could give the roadmap a quick restart, and then all of your charts from that point on after the restart would have the RB frame on them. Setup, charts.
Any other questions that we can answer for you? How many people like this train and trade concept? All right, well, does anybody have any other questions for us? We'll take another break and come back and wrap up. Jonathan, let's take a 20-minute break. We'll come back and wrap up.
Okay. Throw up a chart of the S&P futures and the NASDAQ futures, and then the 20-minute clock right next to it.
Okay. Buck needs a slide link, by the way.
Be happy to post that here in just a moment.
Somebody needs to white papers, John, if you might put that in there. They want to know some of the terms we're using, like pivot number and stuff like that. You'll post that, that'll help. Yeah, JD, this morning on the Magic 5, it was all index trading because the direction was a little screwy and I had NVIDIA down. NVIDIA looked okay. All right, I'll see everybody in 20 minutes. All right, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Had a little news on that break. I guess Japan and South Korea. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. All right, folks, I'm back now. Anyway, we had news 25% tariffs levied against Japan and South Korea. And market sold off. I think the low was, let me give it to you. The low on the E-mini came down to 62.60. So that was pretty interesting. Then people started buying it. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, everybody can hear me. Okay. Anyway, so that might be, we'll watch it very close, but that might be something to watch. As we get further into it. But what do you think? Here's a question I got for everybody. What do you think would go down on something like that? What kind of news would go down? I mean, what would go down, you think? Can you think of anything that would go down on that kind of news in general? Skip says steel. What about the Japanese yen? I think Japanese yen would go down because they're going to, if it lasts for more than a few days, they will have to do something with their interest rates or whatever to offset it. Ken, that's a great question. What I use for my news sources? Well, I keep the TV on with the sound off all day long, where the tape's at the bottom. It could be any financial network, Fox Business, CNBC, Bloomberg early in the morning. And I keep that on. And then I use websites like Seeking Alpha. Okay. And I use, I guess, Reuters. I use Reuters, Wall Street Journal, stuff like that. I just get online stuff, investing.com, different websites like that. And I just check my phone and, it pops in there. But this is what you do to just keep up because, an announcement like that. Now let's go back and think about today. Let me ask a couple questions. Jonathan, can you put a sheet up here, like a summary sheet, questions that kept me out of the market? I would like to go through some of the questions I asked myself before I trade on Monday. This is just a sheet that I'm doing for training. But the first question I asked myself, is the S&P above or below today's opening? And the opening came from last night. And the opening was 6307, I think was the number. Let me give it to you. I got it right here. I write it down every day. And I say, okay, is it above or below the open? Well, if it's below the open, that means that the majority of stocks the majority of stocks are falling. And then I look for divergence. And the Amazon was one of the stocks I picked. NVIDIA is one of the stocks that are diverging from the general trend. I look for divergence. Secondly, I look at my reference bars. And the reference bars, if you don't know what they are, we have a white paper that tells it, but that's different times of the day. I have my futures market, and then I have my stock market to analyze, okay? So I have to marry those up. When I couldn't decide to be long or short, okay, I couldn't decide to be long or short, what do I do? If I can't decide to be long or short, it's not clear. I stay out. I'm a lot better off educating myself than losing money. If in doubt, stay out. I like that. If in doubt, stay out. I've been in doubt all day. I can trade at any time, right? But the beautiful thing about it is, if in doubt, stay out. And I keep going through the process. So far, the market has been negative all day long. It tried to turn at Genesis, and Genesis low was 81, and now we're below 81. So you've got a continuation of the market under pressure. So I'm hands up. Now, I will say the NASDAQ, okay, there's more buying coming into the NASDAQ than coming into the S&P. Jonathan, can you think of anything else that you look at when you're trying to get that direction?
I think this is all fantastic information. Everything we've done today has been very good. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Don't confuse. What's our primary goal for being here? To make money. We got the greatest tools out there, and it doesn't do you any good to have these great tools. Like MTI had a short MTI, but if you don't take the short, you're not long, so you're not getting killed, right? Now, I've learned a lot today. I've got numbers today. Nothing major about July has changed. Go back to the 25 tickers. See the E-mini? I'm not below the low or below the high. So therefore, nothing's changed. Circle, still bullish, I guess, right? Circle still bullish. Go through the rest of the list. Let's see if anything changed that we talked about.
Okay, let's we'd have to update it again. That's fine. We can do that.
Okay, bonds are still weak, right? Okay.
Can I update it again?
Okay. AMD's got worse, huh? It's still short.
I gotta
Coin.
not update it yet.
CCJ has gone positive. CCJ, see that? Circle still positive. Crude oil's gone positive. Okay. Apple hadn't changed. All right. Span through the rest of the list. Palantir staying long. Tesla staying short. Somebody wants us to look at RBLX.
RBLX. Okay. I'll throw up a daily chart of this stock, Roblox.
What is it?
It's a company called Roblox. They provide like game for kids, essentially.
It's looking pretty good, isn't it? Why don't you
Stock?
put that on our list? We'll follow it.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll follow that. I never traded that one. Be open-minded. That should have been on my list of things. You got to be open-minded. Day, not yet. I'd have to be below the opening of the day to think getting crude oil short. It'd have to go below 65.70. Another little rule I got. David wants to look at, what is it, BKSY? I've never traded that one either.
Don't know what that one is. Let's find out. Let's
What do
see.
they do?
We're going to find out. We'll click the little icon at the top of the chart. Looks like a little chart with some stacked coins. Company's called Black Sky Technology. I'm just going to copy that name of the company. Throw that into a little search. That's not what I want. Where's their actual website page? There's what they do, a geospatial intelligence company that provides real-time space-based imagery. So they work off government contracts. Who posted that in here? David, most of their business off government contracts, I would assume. With some
Why don't you
commercial.
add it to our list? We'll look at it.
Yeah, I've never looked at that stock. What was the ticker?
So Mondays typically are, if it's real clear, if it's real clear, then I trade. If it's not, see these hands? Not on the mouse.
Okay, black sky has been added.
Uh, Barbara, do you see the current price is higher than the monthly open? If it's higher than monthly open, I'm not going to short it.
That's a great insight there. Always keep in mind the bigger picture.
And the month open is the big picture for July. All right, so as we wrap up this part one today, any other questions anybody has? You know, part of what we're doing is really trying to do that. Now, this is our weekly trade letter. It comes out at the close today. In this letter, we've got some key information, and that information is in different categories. He delivers it right after the close, right to your inbox, how to plan and trade comfortably. You know, we do the broad market update after the close, get to the updates where we're going to be focused, and we just go straight to it. In less than 5 minutes, you got all the news that you actually need. Earnings to watch this week. We got Walmart this week for potential breakouts. The Magic 5 stocks we picked for the week. You guess what one of them is going to be, can't you? But anyway, people love it, and we have our own little Telegram room with it that from time to time we'll put trades in there. But if we see anything we need to tell you about, we'll post it. You know, Jonathan, go through each of those categories and tell them what they get from each one, since you actually write the newsletter.
Yeah, I'll get Tom on the phone after the close and I'll turn on my recorder and say, all right, Tom, what's your broad market update? And I'll paraphrase what he has to say there. So you get that. That's always, real important, especially at the beginning of each month, like we are right now. Key news for the week. It is on the lighter side of the news, but there's some news, I think, on Wednesday and Thursday to watch out for. Of course, that's planned news. We have the unplanned news that, you've seen some of that today with the 25% tariff announced on, was it Japan and South Korea, on August 1st. So always keep in mind there's some unplanned news that you just can't be prepared for. You got to watch out for it. Key earnings to watch. Tom mentioned Walmart. It's a highlight this week. And I'll dig up the rest of the earnings for the week as well. We have banks starting up, I think, next week. So next week, the newsletter will be, earnings section will be focused on the banks. That might be end of this week or it started. I can't remember when exactly the banks start, but they're starting up real soon. Weekly Magic 5 stocks. That's where you'll get Tom's top 5 picks for the week with trigger numbers for entries and also resistance and support levels. And then Tom's special opportunity of the week from those Magic 5. Usually Tom picks one to highlight as the main focus. So it's only $9.99. It's delivered every Monday afternoon after close.
That's for a year or two. $9.99 for a year. That's great.
Yes, it is.
And we'll post that today at 4.
Yep. I'm about to post a link to join in here in case.
All right. Why don't we wrap it up, Jonathan? It's close to 1, and we'll see everybody. We'll be in the same room, or what's the story for part 2?
Let's see, what time is it? It's 1 p.m. Eastern time. We get back at 3:30. Yeah, I don't see why I can't leave this Zoom room open. I'll shut the YouTube broadcast down, but we'll leave this Zoom room open. So just stay here. We'll be back at 3:30.
And we'll put a timer up to remind me when to come back.
We'll do. Yep, I'm going to cut the screen share real quick so I can stop the YouTube, but I'll get the screen sharing once again in a moment with the timer.